Hello world, Shelly here, and it is day 9 of the Foundation MegaFest. 15 days in a row of foundation reviews, as always inspired by ThaTaylaa. I will link her channel down below, as I do in every single one of my foundation review videos, of which I've got 80 plus foundation reviews at this point, and we are going to add a new brand to my arsenal. I have never checked out this brand before. It is on the high end. We are going to take a look at the Guerlain Natural Perfection foundation. This is an SPF 20. It retails for $63. You get 1 fluid ounce of product in a gorgeous, very unique glass bottle. I enjoy the packaging here. Comes in 14 different shades, all of which are on the light to medium end of the spectrum. It really does not get into the deep end. They do have their shades classified by undertone, so you've got neutral, cool, and warm undertones. It's described as medium or full coverage for all skin types. They list sensitive, normal, dry, combo, and oily, so all big 5. Natural finish, a natural looking skin fusion texture foundation. Enhances complexion for a perfect, long-lasting, natural looking result on all skin tones. SPF 20, fresh light texture. Guerlain technology and biofusion micro mesh, a combination of contouring and smoothing stretch fibers that are infused with natural silk and linen fibers so that they're in perfect affinity with the skin. That's some big words. Hydrating agents provide softness and comfort throughout the day. Ching! No parabens, no sulfates, no phthalates. I've got this in the shade 00 Neutral Porcelain, so this is the lightest neutral shade that Guerlain makes. And for those interested in Guerlain's cruelty-free status, they are not cruelty-free. They do not test on animals in the US, but they do sell in China, where animal testing is required. It is done by an outside third party, but not cruelty-free. Couple ingredient notes. The SPF in this foundation is a combination mineral chemical sunscreen. It's titanium dioxide and octinoxate, and this is a silicone based primer. It's got dimethicone in it, and in the ingredient list it does list fragrance. We will see if there is anything noticeable in terms of the scent. I expect that there will be. This is a French brand that is pretty famous for their perfumes, but fragrance is listed in the ingredients, so if you are sensitive to fragrance, you might keep that in mind. So let's take a look at the swatches of this compared to some other foundations in my collection. I've got this in shade 00N, the lightest neutral shade. Hi-ho, let's swatch. First up is today's foundation, the Guerlain Natural Perfection foundation. This is in their lightest shade, Porcelain 00N, a neutral undertone. Next, I've got 2 Estee Lauder Double Wear Stay in Place shades. First up is their lightest shade, 1C0 Shell, which I would say is about 1 shade lighter than the Guerlain. And then the third swatch is the Double Wear Stay in Place in shade 1C1 Cool Bone, which I would say is about 1 shade darker than the Guerlain. Fourth, I've got the MAC Studio Fix Fluid in shade NW10. And fifth, I've got the MAC Studio Sculpt in shade NW15. I would say the NW10 is about a shade lighter than the Guerlain. The NW15 looks just a smidge darker than the Guerlain, so I would say that if you know your shade in a MAC foundation, it's about the equivalent of a 13, maybe a neutral 13 as opposed to 15. Erring on the side of caution, I'd probably match it to a 15 in MAC. But these are all slightly cooler undertone foundations than the Guerlain, and I would say that the Guerlain is accurate in its undertone for being a neutral. I'm starting out with a 43-year-old face. I've got some sun damage on this side of my face from driving and not wearing sunscreen, sunspots, some additional texture that I like to cover up. I do have large pores on my cheeks here and my chin, And in the center of my forehead, I also get some texture in between my eyebrows here that likes to cause trouble for foundations. I do have fine lines around my mouth, my forehead lines, I got some deeper chin lines, my fat lines down here. So those are all areas that like to give foundation trouble, and that's what I'm trying to hide, cover up, minimize with my foundation routine. I do have normal to dry skin. My skin's pretty normal this time of year. My skincare is doing a really good job of keeping everything hydrated, but I do tend to get dry if I am in the presence of drying ingredients, and then my skin gets dehydrated, and by the end of the night it looks kind of prune-like. So those are the issues we are starting out with. I have already cleansed, moisturized, and sunscreened my face. I have primed with the Strive Vectin Line Blur Factor. This stuff is magic. And I have also used under my eyes my Becca Anti-Fatigue Primer. So that is where we are starting out. Let's take a look at this guy. Oh, pump, pump, glorious pump. I really like the shape of this bottle. It's squared off on the back and sort of rounded. I wonder if you'll be able to tell. Can you tell that shape? It's got like rounded front two edges and squared off on the, it's just different, you know. I like different. We will go in on one side of my face with a giant Sonia Kashuk sponge, the other side with my e.l.f. Ultimate Blending Brush, see if there is a difference in the application, and let's do this. Oh, definitely fragrance. Oh, it's like I'm putting perfume on my face. It smells good though. Whoa, it's scented. Pretty light coverage with a sponge. It's blending out really easily, but I feel like a lot of my redness is still coming through. I think there's a pretty good amount of product soaked into the sponge as well. Let's try the brush side. I think the coverage is definitely better with the brush. I also like the finish quite a bit more with the brush. I think it's doing a lot more to blur my texture and pores. So I would recommend using a brush with this one. I've still got a bunch of product left from that first 1.5 pumps I had put out. They claim this is buildable, so let's go see how far we can build this thing. Well, not how far, because I'm not gonna try to build this up to full-on cake face, but let's just get some coverage in my trouble spots. I'd say we're at medium coverage right now. It does build up nicely on itself. I think the finish is really, really pretty. The issue I'm having is that on some spots, for example my chin, I don't feel like I'm getting the coverage of my redness, and in a couple spots it's just sitting a little bit wonky on the skin. So my nose is on the verge of having polka dot pores. If I blend it out and buff it in, it seems to want to blend away, but if I stipple it in as I've done on the rest of my face, it's almost just sitting on top of the skin. So that's a little disconcerting. My texture in between my eyebrows, it's like borderline visible. It's not really doing a lot to smooth out that texture, but it doesn't look bad at this point. And my forehead looks fine. I don't see any gathering into lines. I really don't see any settling into pores except for the borderline pore settling that's going on my nose. Overall, I think it is a very pretty finish. I would call this a satin matte. It's got just a little bit of luminance to it, but it is leaning toward matte. Pretty much a natural finish. I would like just a little bit more luminosity, or not quite dewiness, but just a little bit more life in my natural finish foundation, but I think that claim is pretty accurate. I think this is giving me a pretty decent smoothing of both texture and pores. It looks really, really pretty. So let's check the time. It is currently 12:05 p.m. I'm gonna go put the rest of my face on and I'll be right back. Here we go, face is on. I did not have any trouble blending product out on top of this foundation, and I did not set it with a powder. It is super, 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 super lightweight, and it did seem to set itself down, so I felt like I was gonna be able to blend powder on top of it, and I did. It was just fine. I had no trouble putting concealer on. I used the Kat Von D Lock-It in shade L5 Neutral, and no trouble blending whatsoever. I will say that I've gotten into the habit of wetting my mini sponge that I use to blend out my concealer with the Tatcha Luminous Dewy Skin Mist. This is an expensive habit instead of wetting it with water, but it gives such a smooth look under my eyes, and I haven't had to set my under eye with powder, and it prevents it from creasing. I was able to get my nose to look just a little bit better. I took a little bit of product on my finger and just sort of pressed it into the areas that were looking sort of polka dotty and uneven. It's not completely fixed. There's one little spot that still looks like it's not smoothed over quite right, but overall it definitely helped. So I don't really feel like I have any real trouble spots right now. The finish is just a smidge drier than I would like. I feel like it's accentuating my forehead lines just a bit, just because it looks a little bit dehydrated is kind of what I'm thinking. But that really, you can't tell at a conversational distance. That's just kind of an up close kind of thing. I'm also noticing that it is setting into my lines just a little bit, even my smile lines. And like I said, my crow's feet. My crow's feet, they don't really exist yet, and the only time you see them is when product is either settling into them or my skin gets super dehydrated. So I do feel like I'm having a little bit of product settling into my lines. It is tapping out, but I can't continue to tap it out all day. So eventually I'm just gonna have to accept that there's product settled into my fine lines. It's not settling into my smile lines, it's just the less noticeable lines, like my forehead lines and my crow's feet. So that's happening. Not my favorite thing at the moment, but overall I think this looks really, really pretty. It's very, very comfortable. Totally can't even feel it on my face. So good start in that regard. Let's take a look at what else I have on my face. My bronzer is the Benefit Dallas. Blush is the new Kevyn Aucoin Neo Blush. This is in the shade Pink Sand. You guys, this is so pretty. I took the darker end of this and I used it toward the back of my cheeks, and then I used the lighter side as the rest of my blush, and super freaking pretty. Loving it. My highlight is just a smidge of the Smashbox Velada. This is the Petal Metal highlighter in the shade Prismatic Petal. It's pretty pink and pretty bold, but you know, with a light hand, it turns out to look really nice, I think. My brows are the Kat Von D Brow Struck Brow Powder and Signature Eye Pencil that I can't find in front of me, in the shade Walnut. And oh, my eyes. My eyes are the BH Cosmetics Festival palette. This thing is so pretty and so easy to work with, and the mattes are super blendable and way hella pigmented, and the shimmers go on beautifully without wetting the brush, and as per usual, BH Cosmetics is knocking it out of the friggin' park with their eyeshadow formula. I'm like deathly in love, like deathly in love. Mascara is the Butter London Double Decker, which I'm digging the heck out of lately. Like, and my lashes are not being cooperative right now. I'm missing, you know, they do this little molting thing where I lose my lashes right in the center and I have a big gap. And it's really, really pretty. And my lip is Milani Amore Shine. You haven't seen them in a few videos in a couple weeks because I forgot that I moved them to a different drawer and then I lost them and I couldn't find them. I found them. This is the shade number 01 Delights. And that is what we're starting out with. So I will come back in a few hours with a daylight check-in. Then I'll be back at the end of the night with my final thoughts. Hey guys, it's about 5:20 p.m. so we are just past the 5-hour mark, and right before I stepped outside to give you this daylight check-in, I got a very good close-up look in the mirror at this foundation, and I have to say, I'm terribly disappointed at how quickly it's breaking down. My chin is already completely breaking down, separating around the movement lines of my mouth. It is already breaking down around my nose, and that it's only been 5 hours. Like, that's not even a half day for me. I am not happy at all about that. Would it have done better if I had set it with a powder? Maybe. I will try that out next time I wear this, but the thing is, it didn't say anywhere on their website that it had to be set with a powder, so that was not part of the instructions. But the color match seems very good. I think it is a good match for me, but the bad news for that is this is the lightest shade they make. So if you're any paler than I am, and there are a lot of you out there, this is probably going to be too dark for you. I'm not the palest of the pale. I'm pretty pale, but there are good 2 to 3 shades paler than me out in the world. So that is where we are at the 5-hour mark. I'm kind of bummed out. I think it still looks okay at a conversational distance, but my chin and mouth area is kind of a hot freaking mess right now. And like I said, it's been 5 hours and 20 minutes, so I am not super stoked about that. However, I will still be back at the end of the night to give you guys my final thoughts. 12:12 p.m. That makes it, well, about the 12-hour mark. Why did I wear it for 12 hours knowing it was falling apart at 6? Well, it is that doggone comfortable. I just wore it all day. Very lightweight, very comfortable, not drying at all. Very nice feeling foundation. Unfortunately, it pretty much fell apart. My nose, my chin, my forehead, basically any place that doesn't have powder on it. So I'm thinking that this one probably will work well set with a powder, because the areas of my blush, bronzer, highlight where, you know, essentially you could say I set that with powder. I didn't set it with translucent powder or foundation powder, but there is powder on top of the foundation in those areas. Those areas seem to stay put pretty well. The areas, you know, you can still see my bronzer across the top of my forehead, but the areas with nothing on top did not stay very well at all. So I'm going to proceed assuming that this will work better set with a powder, and I will test that and I will update you guys in a future foundation follow-up and let you know. But let me show you up close what we are dealing with here. My chin is very much broken apart, lots of splotchiness, lots of caking. My mouth, really any place with a movement line, has caked up. The foundation is starting to sort of settle into my cheek pores. It is a little bit, what's left of it is a little bit cakey around my nostrils. My nose, it started out with the struggle of near polka dot pores, and it's still struggling. The foundation just kind of clumping up and breaking up on my nose. In between my eyebrows is just sort of breaking apart, but it doesn't look horrible for 12 hours. My forehead is just missing most of its coverage with the exception of the area where I've got my bronzer. So this foundation did settle into lines. The settling pretty much slowed to a crawl by the end of putting on my makeup, and it wasn't too bad after that point, but it took quite a bit of tapping out to get to that point. But in terms of dry skin, I think this is just fine. I don't feel like it's a drying formula at all. I still feel very comfortable wearing it after 12 hours. Slight settling into lines, pretty much nice blurring of pores and texture while it is still in place. Once it's no longer in place, you start to have trouble with those things. So if I had to give a grade to the Guerlain Natural Perfection foundation, right now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go C. Not because it looks great and average quality right now. I think the wear time was really bad without setting with powder. But it shows promise, and I'm going to give it a little bit of credit for that. If I come back in a foundation follow-up and these grades change, I will let you know. But my guess is that with powder, this will actually go up a little bit in my grade book. I would probably be rating this around a B if it had worn, you know, 8 to 10 hours instead of 5. But that's where we're at right now. I'm gonna go C for now. That's got a little contingency to it with my trial and error with some setting powder and this one, but that's what we're gonna say for the Guerlain. So there you have it, my thoughts on another foundation in the books. If you guys have recommendations for foundations you'd like to see, leave them down in the comments below. Double check my website, geekoutofwater.com. Click the Foundation Fest link. See if the foundation you would like to see is on my list, because I've got over 80 foundations listed on there. There's a sortable, searchable, ranked spreadsheet. So for example, if you wanted to know what are your top 5 hydrating foundations, type the little search box, hydrating, and you'll get them ranked in order. All kinds of words work on there. I have some suggestions on that page, but you can type all kinds of things. Vegan, hydrating, smoothing, blurring, not drying, etc., etc., etc. So that is over on my website. Stay tuned every night through June 22nd. We've got the Foundation MegaFest rolling in progress as we speak. Foundation reviews every single night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 15 in a row. We are right in the smack dab middle of it. Thanks a lot for taking some time out of your day to geek out over makeup with me. I appreciate it, and I hope you guys all have an awesome day or night wherever you are in the world. Take care of each other. Bye-bye.